More on the economic crisis crippling Americans is America's accountant, Dan Geltrude. Dan, thank you for being with me. So right now we're hearing kind of conflicting narratives from the White House. They're kind of showing their hand, admitting inflation is really bad. They're kind of moving away from the transitory thing, but they'll still bring it up from time to time. And Biden is kind of poising things like the economy is on the road to this great recovery. But by the May report that we have out with the consumer prices and by all available evidence, that's not the case. Things are not getting better.
Things are not getting better. Things are getting worse. And things are not going to get better, and I've said this many times, until there is policy change. Because right now, what is causing this inflation that just won't go away is bad policy, primarily related to the energy sector. Now, unless we start, quite frankly, drilling again, refining again, and getting our energy costs down, I do not see how inflation is going to retract at all, because energy goes into literally every product and service. And we see those costs and prices going up and up, and there's no reason for it to turn around unless we do something. So sitting around and blaming Putin is not going to get the job done here.
No, yeah, and I'm sure you saw Biden over the weekend when he was giving a talk. He rolled out his new Putin price hike propaganda line again. But you're right, it is a matter of policy. The White House came out saying they're doing everything they can to fight inflation. If that were true, they would bring back American energy independence. They would stop printing inordinate amounts of money. They would stop shipping all of our money to countries overseas. If they really were doing everything they could, it's not rocket science. I'm no economist. I'm no expert, quote unquote, but I do have two eyes that tell me that there are policies here that are directly causing inflation, and it's not that hard to snuff those out. And as a result of bad policy, we have this picture here. I think we'll throw it up on the screen. The price for a gallon of whole milk is up 20% in the last year. Airline fares are up 37.8% in the last year. Average home rental price 15.2% in the last year, and a dozen of eggs are up 75% in the last year. Notice that isn't in the last few months or since Putin invaded Ukraine. It's the last year throughout Joe Biden's presidency.
Yeah, inflation got started primarily because Joe Biden and his administration failed to recognize what was happening in terms of, on the two sides of the scale, supply and demand. They did not recognize that there was a supply problem. For some reason, they felt it was a demand problem, and they had to do that because what did they do? They kept trying to increase demand, which they were totally off base on. And even till today, we still have the same problem with the economy. There is simply not enough supply. Supply chains still remain damaged. So how do you solve this problem? First, you have to recognize what the problem is. How about this? Let's have a government policy where no one gets paid unless they go to work. How about that? That'll help us increase supply, won't it? So we have to actually get government out of the way. So if Joe Biden is saying they're doing all they can, well, that means they're doing basically nothing, which is not changing the policies. If they change policies, going back to the Trump economic policies, and then sit back and do nothing, that's the right thing to do.
And the mainstream media is even hopping off of the ship of trying to run cover for Biden. I remember last year, we'll throw this up on the screen too, in December of 2021, CNN ran the headline, "Why Inflation Can Actually Be Good for Everyday Americans and Bad for Rich People." So CNN trying to peddle the idea when people were really starting to complain about inflation, that it was actually a good thing for everyday hardworking Americans. But it is so bad now, you can't possibly use that line. Americans have something like $9,000 less in savings. They're having to dip more into their savings just to cover these summer costs, to cover gas to get to work, to get groceries. And so even the mainstream media is moving away from that narrative.
That narrative is so outrageous. If CNN's credibility hadn't been damaged enough, certainly something like that puts it over the top. There is no one that possibly would believe that you have working Americans and try to twist it says, everything costing you more is a good thing. And the basis for that article, by the way, in that story was to say, well, your wages are going up. True, but you're forgetting the other side of the equation. Wages are going up, and the cost of everything and the prices of goods are going up at a far greater pace. No one has to be an economist, Addison, to figure that out. Just pay your bills, go to the grocery store, and it's clear as clear can be.
Yeah, if you get a couple percent, if you get 5% raise but 10% inflation, then really your real wages are getting cut 5%. It's simple math. Well, Dan, we are totally out of time. I really appreciate you breaking this down for us. Thank you.
Thanks, Addison.
Coming up next, Madness.